So here we are for another episode of Dixie Fields Diaries, and it's another special episode this week. I'm joined by the lovely Todd Thomas, who is one of the directors of the British Country Music Association, and is also an artist manager, as well as many other hats he wears as well. So Todd's come here today to tell us a little bit about being an artist manager and what it entails. So thank you so much for joining us, Todd. Hope everything's going okay with you. So can you just briefly explain the role of an artist manager? What do you do? How do you fit in with kind of the tour manager and the agent? How does that all work?
Well, thank you, Georgie. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on here, and it's an honor, and getting to know you and what you've done with the Dixie Fields Festival and Belief in Country Music, and doing interviews like this. It's great content for artists, for managers, for everybody in the business to just get to see some of these things, especially during these trying times. So, yeah, I appreciate you having me on here. As far as a role of an artist manager, it's always, I've looked at it and it's different for everybody. For me, it's everything, it's understanding the artist first and foremost, their core beliefs, their values. You start understanding their brand, their goals, where they want to go, what they want, what's music they like to write. You start understanding their presence and situations on stage in a room. So I kind of just sum it up as far as an artist manager is they believe in it more than anybody else does. So when the artist gets down on themselves, they're there to pick them up and say, no, you got this. It's also my goal is to try to keep the artist in the creative mode 100% of the time. That's very difficult when things aren't necessarily working out. Your single's not climbing the charts. You're not getting bookings. The bank account's getting low. And so there's all these other thoughts going on inside an artist's head. I mean, it's always tough to try to just say, you got this, just go in and write a song. Don't let those things affect you. But, sometimes great songs come out of those kind of things. So it's just believing in the artist and always lifting that person up.
And how do you find an artist? So obviously we got to know you because you managed Jackson Mickelson, who played at Dixie Fields last year. How did your relationship with Jackson come about? Did he approach you? Did you kind of happen upon him in a little venue? How does it work?
Yeah, so the artists I work with, it's never started just by, hey, I want to manage your career and this. It's always been a relationship or a feeling that you see something greater in that person than they see in themselves. And with Jackson, I was working a production at a small county fair in Oregon, Corvallis, Oregon. It's actually where Jackson's from. So I'm working this B stage. So it's the community artists that were coming through, and I was running sound and just kind of letting the artists come through. And, like any community stage, you're going to have some great acts. You're going to have some kids acts. It's cute. It's funny. And then out of the blue, I was walking by, and Eric Church was playing on the main stage. So he was one of my favorite artists. So I'd run over there and kind of watch a couple songs, and then I ran back to check on this community act that was coming through. Its name was Jackson Mickelson. And I didn't go back and watch Eric Church the rest of that set. I sat there and watched Jackson. And the cool thing was he started with 25 people, then 50 and 100 people started gathering around him. And then afterwards, he went to the merch table and proceeded to sell out of all the CDs. And I was just astonished because I hadn't seen that. He was 19 at the time. So I think I was 26.
Years ago now.
Yeah. So after all that was said, I talked to him. I said, hey, man, I just want to tell you I've never seen anything quite like that. And your performance, he had this energy on stage that made everybody in the crowd get up and dance and made you feel good about it. And you were just drawn in as a fan. And I told him I was his fan, and anything I could do to help him out, let me know. And I went back to the company I was working with at the time, That's Entertainment International, and we were a boutique booking agency and buyers, and really starting to grow in the country format at that time. And so I brought his name up, and through that process, we started booking Jackson up and down the West Coast, and I ended up falling in love with an artist out in Nashville. So I moved out to Nashville, and I left Jackson at the agency there and said my cousin was going to take care of him on the booking side of things. And a couple of years later, got a call from them saying, "Hey, can you help us out on the management side?" And so it came full circle. And yeah, it's been amazing working with Jackson.
I think you just vocalized what everybody at Dixie Fields saw last year. Obviously, he hadn't played in the UK before, and he came on stage, and I think he pretty much won every single person over just like that, because he is so charismatic and he's got that energy. So I think obviously that was the start of your journey with him as well. So have you always been passionate about country music particularly, or all sorts of music?
No, really. If you asked me in my high school years and early college, I would say country music was my least favorite.
Yeah.
So I was always drawn to like the 90s alternative, Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about in the past, just like Collective Soul, Better Than Ezra, these 90s bands that there's one in particular from the UK called Space Hog that I really liked. But as I started working in a booking agency, you would start hearing some of the cover bands that we'd book would play some of these songs over and over. And so I started hearing like Thunder Rolls and really started doing like a deep dive into what is country, and went all the way back to like Chet Atkins and, George Jones and Buck Owens and Hank and Willie and Merle. And you're just going like, wow.
Yeah.
Lyrically, these songs it's like blowing my mind at that time, because I think I was, really attached to the feel of music. And now it's like lyrics are hitting the feel of music, and you're like, wow, this is a very special genre. And so we started booking small clubs out in the West Coast, maybe 200 capacity. And this is when, Eric Church, Luke Bryan, Lee Bryce, we were getting these acts for just a small portion of what they're booking for now. And watching people just come out and be attached to the artists and music, and that was so exciting. So that really is what propelled me into country music.
Yeah. So you're on the board of directors for the British Country Music Association. So how have you, obviously there's a huge difference between the US market and the UK market in terms of country artists. How have you kind of seen the UK artists develop over the last 5 years or so?
Oh, it's been incredible. I think it's always been fascinating to me, because when I first went over to the UK with American Young, that was 2014, 2015. So what our Americana music in the US, I would say was considered country music in the UK. So it was this, oh wow, they're playing this music over here under the country format. And since that time, it has just grown so dramatically. And you have, the Wandering Hearts, the Shires, Jade Hallowell, Gary Quinn. You have all these artists that are just like growing in popularity, and it's so cool to see it. But it really is attributed to festivals such as yourselves, Dixie Fields, Buckle and Boots, Millports, Sea the Sea, obviously, Long Road. Those festivals have created opportunities for this music to be heard. I think the music has been there. I just don't think the light has necessarily been shined on it. And I think it really has come to life in the last couple of years. And I see this really, really growing. And the great opportunity with the BCMAs is understanding those opportunities and trying to figure out what tools we can offer to those artists, not only artists, managers, and other festivals, to create a platform that, hey, we could go to this site, or we can ask a rep, how do we get a record deal, or what is a publishing deal, and start looking for those opportunities and partners with that. So it's really exciting to see where not only the BCMA's in country music in the UK it's going, because it's obviously it's accepted throughout the country.
I think there has kind of, I guess, and still is, a bit of a stigma about country music, and it's like country and western, and people think that you're just going to be in a field listening to bluegrass and what have you, and people will listen, and this is my personal opinion, that people will listen to a country song and love it, but not actually know that it's country, and not kind of acknowledge what they're listening to. So I think that's very much a barrier that's being broken down over here, and with the likes of Kezia Gill and the Shires and Ward Thomas, and they're played on national radio stations now. So there's very much a breaking down of barriers going on from my point of view anyway. And for the US artists who come over here, I mean, we've been so lucky over the last few years. We've seen some absolutely amazing US artists. Why is it important for them to come over to the UK, or to tour in Europe or whatever?
Oh, it's extremely important. You see that these the terrestrial radio was the number one driver for country music in America. So that has been implanted for years and years, AM, FM radio over here. And now the likes of Sirius XM, satellite radio, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, Deezer, now TikTok, and YouTube obviously has created opportunity for music to live outside borders, and people to tune into it from different avenues, and that's just really allowed U.S. artists, not only U.S. artists, I'd say artists from every country, to have the opportunity to go out and expand their fan base, and the opportunity to share their music to places that may have never heard of them. So it's so exciting. I look at the world. I mean, with American Young, we've traveled to 20 different countries in the last 2 years, and to go over to China and play in front of 20,000 people that may or may not have ever heard a country song, you don't know, but it was just to see that there are no borders with music, and there are no boundaries, and it's really cool, because I think music is the one thing that connects people together. You see it through these quarantine times, that's, you could take all the gigs away from them, but yet they won't stop playing music, and people tune into it, and it is a soundtrack. So it's extremely important to just continue to grow. And me personally, I love the travel, and I love to meet people, and you never know where these ideas may spawn from. I have a good friend that he lost his mother due to cancer a couple years ago, and just needed to leave the States. And he was a pop hip hop artist, just trying to figure it out. And he had went over to Ireland for 6 months. And he said at the end of his stay, he was just kind of journaling everything. He was listening to a band play, and he just got this feeling and started writing these songs, or wrote this song. And the next thing you know, he sent it over to Avicii's manager, just found it on an email. And the next day he got back to the States, he had an email saying Avicii wants to cut this. And it turned into his first #1 as a songwriter, and it's launched his career. So, just traveling to new places and experiencing new things gives you different feels.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, from a lot of people's point of view, you've got an absolutely amazing job. Who wouldn't love to be an artist manager, for example? Yeah. So what is a little bit of advice for anyone who wants to get involved in the management side of music? How do you start from somebody who just enjoys listening to music, going to festivals, going to gigs? How do you get involved in this side of it?
Yeah, it's going to be different for everybody. I mean, at least for me, it was moments when I least expected it. It's like, there's times where this is a job, and there's times, majority of the time, this is what I love to do. So, it's like I'm excited. I get to do what I'm passionate about. And I'd say follow that instinct. If you're passionate about music, create the opportunity. I mean, befriend an artist that you really like, and hey, is there anything I can do for you? Can I go sell merch? Can I drive your Sprinter van? Or how, like, go through all those channels, because all those things you're going to learn from, and that's going to make you a much more well-rounded person of knowledge to when it comes down to saying, hey, I'm the manager. I'm learning something new every day, and I'm making mistakes. As long as I don't repeat those mistakes, then I'm making progress. So it's one of those things that you have to make the ask. You have to show up and be there. That's probably the number one, is be present. Keep
going.
Don't be afraid. If you feel something within you, make sure you say it, because I think a lot of artists have been guarded from managers or other people around them, to where maybe they don't get the raw reaction or what people feel. Maybe it's in their head that, hey, we have to go this route. But I think it's your opportunity to share. Go, hey, here's a great opportunity, or have you thought of this? Or there's so many things, but you just have to be present and just find whatever you can do to get yourself in the door.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Todd. I've really enjoyed chatting to you, and hopefully we will have inspired, or you will have inspired, lots of future artist managers. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And if there's ever any other questions, and I know this is just my story, but it's awesome what you're doing, and the network you're creating, an opportunity you're given to not only artists but everyone out there in the world. So we appreciate you, Georgie, and Dixie Fields.
So
we're looking forward to the virtual concert in 2021.
Absolutely. Bring it on. Thank you.
All right.